Welcome back to the news at 10. Now, how important is it to you the act of covering the mouth when coughing or sneezing? And what consideration do you give a cough that's consistent and prolonged? You can get answers to these questions and more on our Focus on Health tonight as our correspondent, Yomi Otaigwe, takes us through the prevention and control of tuberculosis in Nigeria.
Coughing, one of the red flags for tuberculosis, a cough lasting more than 3 weeks. Going by the current World Health Organization's estimate, 270 people in 100,000 population in Nigeria are infected with TB. The bacterial infection, which is spread through the air when people with active TB infection cough, sneeze, speak, sing or spit, is curable through treatment. However, Nigeria may have to brace up to curbing multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, which seem to be on the increase.
Sometimes you start treating patients, and then by the first 2 months, they feel like they are getting better. It's a tendency amongst Nigerians, amongst most people across the world. They think they are getting better, whereas they are supposed to take the drugs for a longer period. Most people do. When they think they are getting better, they stop taking drugs. So all of these factors contribute to people developing resistance. And when you start developing resistance, it becomes very, very problematic, because if you treat the patients, you're not going to get with the right, you're not going to get them cured until you detect which drug the patient is resistant to, and you change the drug.
Changing the drugs comes with its price.
Instead of 6 months now, for between 18 months to 24 months. So you can see that treatment now becomes so tedious. The person has to be taking this drug every day for 18 to 24 months. Not only the duration of treatment, these drugs, second-line drugs, are more toxic. They cause more side effects in the patient than the first-line drugs. And then in addition, they are 3 times to 4 times more expensive than the first-line drugs. So this is why it is a problem. And what we should all try to avoid, we should avoid getting to that situation of resistance.
Tuberculosis is closely linked to both overcrowding and malnutrition, factors predominantly found among the less privileged. However, the TB control program in Nigeria is geared towards making treatment more accessible.
Outrightly, TB treatment is free. That's the standard, especially when you assess treatment from DOT centers. What is DOT? DOT means directly observed treatment shortcuts. You want to monitor what the patient, the way he's taking his drugs, and following up on that until treatment is completed.
TB, tuberculosis, is a disease of poverty. And it affects a large number of people who are poor, who have no access in terms of physical access and financial access. And also that it is also affecting people who are largely illiterate.
Tuberculosis prevention and control efforts primarily rely on the BCG vaccination of infants and the detection and appropriate treatment of active cases. Looking out for chest pains, weakness, weight loss, fever, and night sweats could be helpful.
Even ordinary coughing, when you are coughing, you put your hand in your mouth, cover your mouth so that the droplets can be contained within that. Once you know that your cough is abnormal, i.e. blood-stained cough or even persistent cough, you must seek for medical care.
When you are in a room and the place is congested, open windows so there's cross ventilation. So that even anybody's coughing, you don't have to have all the bacilli concentrated so that you inhale. You open the windows, and then you get to know the signs and symptoms. Somebody that's been coughing for 2 weeks or more, and he has taken some cough syrup and it's not going, he has taken some normal antibiotics, still cough, it's suspicion. You start losing weight, you start losing appetite, you go, on your own if you have those symptoms. If the awareness is there, you go to the clinic. to have, care.
We need to create more awareness in terms of bringing messages that will be community friendly and that will be easily understood by the communities in order to really reduce the level of stigma and discrimination. Stigma and discrimination, affect people to accessing treatment and services, TB services within the healthcare facilities in the community.
Diagnosing active tuberculosis based merely on signs and symptoms is difficult. Skin tests, blood tests, x-rays and others are screenings to consider. Yomi Otaigbe reporting for Channels Television News.
Reprieve seems to have come the way of over 505 victims in Kwara State as the National Emergency Management Agency has distributed relief materials, including foodstuff, mattresses and roofing sheets to them. The Zonal Coordinator of NEMA, Mr. Slako Lugard, however, asked residents to be more vigilant.
They arrived with expectations of relief materials. It's been 2 months since their houses and wares were burnt in a fire incident. While they received the materials, Mr. Abdulaziz Ibrahim, who is the special advisor to the state government on emergency and relief services, urged them to utilize the materials and not sell them.
At the occurrence of this fire disaster, the state government, through the through the emergency office, went through all the affected places and having assessed all the damages done through the fire. So we recommended certain compensation or relief for these victims. We are not going to give any tenant this to avoid them taking them to the market for sale.
On the other hand, the NEMA Zonal Coordinator for Kogi and Kwara States, Mr. Slako Lugard, appealed to Nigerians to take security issues seriously.
We have done some sensitization. We want to do more on both fire, flood and other things. I think being aware and preparing is a key thing now. Like I always say, NEMA is not about responding to disaster, bringing relief materials, but we are more on disaster risk reduction. Try to reduce, know what to do, avoid them, and then the impact will be minimal if it must come.
We are indeed grateful for their concern on us, most especially if one is in problem, whomever come within his already to give aid. I think it's something very important.
Yes. Improving the response time from emergency agencies, prompt compensation of victims, and functional relief centers are some of the issues that should be attended to.
Nigerian Breweries PLC has relaunched its premium stout beverage, the Legend Extra Stout, in its new Revolution campaign. The new look Legend Extra Stout bottle now comes with a tamper-proof neck metallic foil, golden crown and an originality seal. The Legend Revolution also kickstarts the 2014 edition of the annual Legend Real Deal promo, which rewards lucky consumers with an all-expense-paid 1 million naira shopping spree in Dubai.
It was a night of great theatrics, comedy and dance as Nigerian Breweries starts its Revolution campaign for its brand of stout beverage, the Legend Extra Stout. The performing group employed the use of drama, a mix of classical and contemporary dance, and a short movie to create a parody which pitches Legend Extra Stout against an unnamed popular competition. And of course, the Real Deal won the consumer over in a legendary fashion.
Life is about change, and tonight we have marked a new dimension and a new change around the Legend brand, which is about the packaging. It is for us the movement of the people but this time around the movement of the consumers in seeking for a higher quality, taste, and satisfaction in stout.
It's so unique because it's brewed the way an original stout should be brewed. It is brewed the way other stouts are not brewed. And I mean, the process of brewing is from start to finish.
The Legend Revolution campaign returns with its usual promotion, which rewards selected consumers with an all-expense paid shopping trip to Dubai.
New look Legend Extra Stout.
More in the world of business is additional Josh.
Well, thank you, Amarachi. Let's take you through our business stories this hour. Yields on Nigerian bonds are expected to rise slightly towards 14% next week as demand for the debt falls after the monetary tightening by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The CBN kept interest rates on hold for the 15th time in a row on Tuesday, but raised its cash reserves requirement on private sector deposits by 300 basis points to 15%. Now, traders say yields have dropped in the wake of expectations that the CBN would embark on aggressive liquidity, mopping up after its Monetary Policy Committee announced a fresh tightening, but this has not been so. With expected resumption of aggressive liquidity mop-up next week, yields are seen climbing to around 14% on the long tenor debt notes. Meanwhile, the decision of the Monetary Policy Committee to further tighten the monetary policy has elicited some mixed reactions. While some think it's a good move, particularly as we approach the election year, others think it's not in the interest of the economy. Our focus on economy tonight by our correspondent Chimize Obiwagu takes a look at some of those reactions and the possible implications of the decisions to the economy.
It's the 15th time the MPR is being left at 12%, but this time the cash reserve ratio on private sector deposits was tinkered with. The committee unanimously voted for further tightening of monetary policy to consolidate recent gains, but was divided on the instrument. However, by a majority vote of 5-4, the committee took the decision to retain the rate at 12% and increase the CRR for private sector deposits to 15%.
We are trying to reduce inflation, and as we approach an election year, there is bound to be a lot of spending. So if the CBN as a government bank does not come in to intervene and see that we are able to regulate tightening excess liquidity, which might lead to inflation, it will have an adverse effect on the economy.
I have three variables in mind that I thought that the Monetary Policy Committee did not provide sufficient discussion of. That if they had discussed those variables sufficiently, they would not at this time continue with the policy of tightening.
By this move, it means that investable funds available for the banks is being reduced.
I don't think it has any significant negative influence on the market. Don't forget the fact that actually the banks, which is the major target here, we're actually expecting a 100% increase. It's a run of the PSG fund.
3% of private sector deposit comes to about 423 billion naira, which is 3% of money supply. It's not going to take away the overhang and the liquidity saturation which you had already.
But Dr. Ayo Teriba thinks otherwise.
If you continue to tighten without any reference to real economic conditions, you continue to get worsening unemployment rate, contractions in demand, weakening growth.
In all of these, what matters to many is the growth and development of the country. And now that Mr. Godwin Emefiele has been confirmed as the new CBN governor, all eyes are on him to see what his monetary policy stance would be. Chimezie Obiwago, Channels Television News.
In company news, Oando Nigeria PLC has announced a date extension of its ConocoPhillips Nigeria Properties acquisition. The company says the date extension is due to the delay in approval process from the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Our correspondent, Temple Ashaju, reports.
Date extension hits the stock market. The sentiment towards the stock changed. Owando PLC began its process of acquiring ConocoPhillips assets in Nigeria some months ago. Since the announcement, the stock has maintained increased bargain sentiments. When the news of the completion date extension hits the stock market, the sentiment towards the stock changed.
The shares got to about 29 naira before the information came and crashed it to about 12 naira before coming back again.
In a couple of trading sessions this year, Owando PLC has been able to record price movements that impressed investors in the Nigerian stock market. At a point in time, the company even came up with some rights issue which was oversubscribed by investors. When the CEO of that company, Mr. Wale Tinubu, visited the Nigerian stock market, here's what he told me about delivering on their promises to investors.
Today, someone says, can they do it? I buy. Can they not do it? Maybe I sell. But what I always advise people to do is look to the fundamentals, look to the history of the company, look to its capacity to execute, and rely less on the rumor and look to the fundamentals of the company. We will deliver like we've always delivered. We have absolutely no doubts, and that's why we are quietly calm and confident of our capacity.
By the extension of the final acquisition dates from March 30 to April 30, Owando is expected to pay an extra sum of 4 billion naira to the asset's owners. Stockbrokers expressed their mixed feelings on these.
Assuming I bought 1 million units at 29 million, and then today I'm only getting 15 or 16 million. It's not good for me as an investor.
The way we perceive this, or the market is reacting to this, is still negative. Whilst we believe also anyway that this agreement will still be signed by the minister, it's still not having a good effect short term.
Yes, investors may not get dividends in the short run, but the prospects for future growth, to me, remain substantially the driver.
The stock presently trades at 16 naira 49 kobo. Its 3 months performance trends is in the negative by 17.43%. Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
And that's business news this hour. The news at 10 continues in just a moment.
Next on the news at 10, Nigerian striker Osaze Odemuge maintains a goal-scoring form for Stoke City, hopes to make Nigeria's World Cup squad to Brazil. That's in Sports News. Please join us again.